Welcome to the Elissa Goodman Show. And today I have a very, very dear friend of mine, Elizabeth Winkler, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been in practice since 2001. She does a lot of mindfulness for kids, which is something we're going to get into, which I feel is so needed today in this day and age. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I love the fact that I finally got you on to be able to, like, all the wisdom that you have in that head of yours is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And just the love and what you put out into the world and the people that you've introduced me to and the things that you help me with also stay grounded on a daily basis, Elizabeth. So
good. I'm happy to hear that. I feel the same about you.
Thank you. With all my soup cleanse.
I love the soup cleanse. It's my favorite thing.
I'm just curious, how many times have you done that soup cleanse?
I haven't done it enough, and I've done it quite a lot, right?
I know. I feel like it's once a month at a minimum.
Yes.
So
sometimes it's 2 weeks in a row. I love it.
It's pretty special. Wow.
Thank you.
So you're a therapist,
yes,
and you've been in practice since 2001.
Yes.
And did you do the traditional, have you been doing the traditional therapy up until, when did you kind of start into more mindfulness?
So, well, the mindfulness came in a few years ago. Basically, I always was a depth-oriented therapist. My training was more Jungian, if people are familiar with Carl Jung. There's Sigmund Freud.
What is that?
Well, Jung, it's just more in-depth rather than like cognitive behavioral would be very, just dealing with the Band-Aid, putting a Band-Aid on it, which, you're all about getting to the root.
Yeah.
So I've always been focused on getting to the root of something, because if we can pull it out at the root, then everything, all of those tendencies or behaviors disappear, which is what you're doing with your nutrition.
Right.
So I'm doing that with psychology, with emotion. And so I've always been on that path. I was always interested in getting to the root of issues.
Yeah.
Also, what I found was a few years ago with my own meditation practice changing significantly, meaning I started making it a daily practice. And when I did that, everything changed.
And what made you decide to go into that in a daily practice? Did something happen that forced you to do that?
Yes, I did have a bit of an awakening. I mean, I'd always been on a path of awakening, so to speak.
Since you were a little kid?
Well, I studied meditation, mindfulness, Buddhism, all of that in my 20s. I went to Tibet. I went to Bali. I went, on retreats and did my own inner work.
Yeah.
And I think that really started with the loss of my mother. She died when I was 19, which was a significant tragedy in my life.
Yes.
And it happened very quickly.
Right.
So that loss, which in my work, I work so much with loss, and I know you know all about that.
Right.
Having gone through that, I really felt that I needed to seek, right? So I went through a seeking period, which that is its own thing.
Yeah.
And I helped a lot of people with death. I became very familiar and comfortable dealing with death, providing a bridge for people in my work as my training in hospitals and with children and that sort of thing. So that was already happening. And then with the meditation, I just felt like there was more. And through different books, which in my practice, I do a lot of groups, I think like Michael Singer's Untethered Souls.
Yeah,
I always start my groups with that.
Did you give me that as a gift? I think
I did.
You did.
That's right.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yes, and then Eckhart Tolle, we move into Eckhart Tolle usually after that with like a New Earth.
Right.
But I like I like Singer a lot because he really gets you out of the mind. And so what I think the biggest gift is getting that, whatever this thing is saying, don't listen to it.
Right.
Right. So
it's hard to do.
It's all about focus. It's all about where your attention goes. And I think in our world, there's so much happening. There's so much coming and going, and we get distracted. But if we don't have that anchoring into being or into presence, same thing, then we get distracted and we are just looking at what's coming and what's going. And that is where we get lost.
Exactly.
So Michael Singer probably was the reason that I came more deeply into that meditative practice. Also through you, Ryan Weiss, and he had an influence in that as well.
Right.
And so I did a daily practice, which was very Kundalini oriented at that time. And that just really made a big shift for me. And so I started to see so many dramatic shifts in me that what I did was I started to, what I call my children, they became my guinea pigs.
Yeah, of course.
And so we would drive to school. You know, everyone's like, I don't have time to meditate,
Right.
including myself at the time. I have 2 little kids, I have a business, everything. So I did what I call car seat meditation.
I love this.
Yeah. And so I had them harnessed into their car seats. You know, I had 7 minutes, maybe 10, depending on traffic.
Right.
And I would just guide them through a meditation. And then
Did they fight it at all, or did they just like go right into like loving it?
right into it. It was very easy. It's very, you know, dealing with children is different.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing with adults. It's just more refined, you know? And so there's just, you have to meet. It's all about energy, connecting. As you know, we're sitting here together, your energy, we're connecting. And so when you're connected, when you're present, it's almost as if you're led down the right path for that person or that group of people.
Right.
So,
and also you're more open, because when you are really connected, you're more open to what they have to offer you.
Yes.
And vice versa, right?
Exactly. It's a give and a take.
Instead of like being somewhere else, like you said, with your mind and down the road and thinking of all these other things, which a lot of us do.
Right.
So,
when I teach children, so I teach like from 5 years old, from kindergarten through 5th grade.
yeah.
I go into the class,
Do you
teach
go into
mindfulness.
schools around Los Angeles?
I go to, right now
schools?
I'm at Warner Avenue School, which is the public school in Westwood.
Okay.
And I go in there every week and I love it. I teach the teachers, but I also teach the kids. And the thing is, what I have found is it's actually quite easy and kids just eat it up. And it's a fun thing. You know, I'll say, whose body's here this morning? You know, raise your hand. Is your body here? And everyone raises their hand. I'm like, is your mind here? And I said, have you noticed? Sometimes our body's here, but our mind is in last night or this morning, you know?
Right.
And so that's how I introduce them
Yeah.
to mindfulness.
That's so simple.
It is. It's
Just to ask those questions.
Well, it's so
How profound.
The thing is, it really is simple. So I bring in, I wish I had it. I bring in this snow globe type thing, and it has glitter.
Yeah.
And I shake it up, and I go, you see this? I say, this is what it's like when you come in from recess, or when you're emotional, or when you have a lot of thought in your mind. And I said, now how do we get it to settle? And I just hold it.
Yeah.
And they're like,
it
you
all
stop.
settles down. Like,
You have to be still. You have to pause, and then you notice.
Right.
So, and then there's lots and lots more.
Right. So what have you noticed from these kids that you've been teaching them mindfulness? Like, what's come out of it all? Are there any interesting stories along?
So many stories. I mean, it almost brings tears to my eyes because they are so capable. And I guess one of my biggest motivations right now in the world is to make more families, mothers, fathers, children, teachers, anyone aware of how easy it is to teach children this.
Yeah.
It does not have to be hard.
Right.
And
to start off young is the biggest gift you could give them, right?
Anytime.
Yeah.
And it's a language. One thing I love to do is just bring that into a home. So I'll have couples come into my office because I work a lot with divorce and helping people untether mindfully. And I'll tell them, you know, it's a language. So for them to start using this language, and then it becomes, your home becomes this kind of think tank, or everyone's feeding each other this beautiful information that is very mindfulness based, you know, like what am I noticing, or, you know, that sort of thing, present oriented language.
Right.
But what children say, the things that come out of their mouths, they know it too well. Like I taught,
and they're so honest.
Yeah, 1st grade on Wednesday. And I said, have you noticed that there's a voice in your head that talks? And this boy's like, oh yeah. And I said, have you noticed? Because I teach them mantra.
Yeah.
And I said, have you noticed it tends to not like things and say you can't do this and you can't do that? And I said, oh yeah. And they're just telling me all about it. And it's so great because no one talks about this. And this is our biggest limitation in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so then I tell them, okay, I'm going to give you, this is a very powerful, I have some mantras I love. We ground it into our fingers. This builds concentration. So the prefrontal cortex is what we're working with mindfulness.
Okay.
We're building that area.
Right.
Okay, so we pick our mantra. It could be, I can do this. For kids, I like that.
Right,
Or I'm
right.
fine with it, because the
Right.
mind is never fine with anything. So I can do this. So I tell them in the morning, pick a mantra.
Wow. So they just do that with their fingers when,
Yeah,
they,
and this
when
actually,
they say it.
it helps ground it.
Okay.
And kids love it.
Okay.
So, or it could be like, I think maybe you've seen me post lately, I'm really about picking an anchor every day.
Yes.
So like this
Yeah.
morning, my children and I picked peace.
Peace.
So let me be peace.
Yeah.
Or let me be love.
Yeah.
And so you pick that anchor in the morning, you ground into that, because things are going to come and challenge you. But if you have that anchor that grounds you,
Right.
you remember, oh wait, I'm choosing peace, or I can handle this, I
Right.
can do this. And
Does it kind of just naturally follow you throughout the day?
For me?
Yeah.
It-
This mantra, when you pick it and these things come into your world that aren't so
Yes.
peaceful,
Yes.
do you just, or it takes practice?
I do think it takes practice at first, but I've been doing this for a while, and I've found what I always say to people, let it be an experiment. Just because people come see me once a week.
Right.
Until I see you next time, just try it.
Right.
Because that's what we have to do.
Right.
And then what you discover is when you start to choose this and
Right.
embody it, you see that it actually works. And you're like, what have I been doing for my whole
Prior
life?
to this. Yeah, exactly.
So you don't know
Life
it.
was not calm.
It doesn't matter. You can read this. If it just becomes knowledge,
Yeah.
you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to embody it.
Yeah.
You have to live it. You have to be it. It's not about it happening tomorrow. It's about now.
Right. Right. Because all we have is now.
That's all we have.
I mean, it's like, and people just don't stay in that place. They don't really, it's all about, we are so future focused.
Yes, which is all fear. So, the
Causing all
mind.
kinds of mental issues with,
Yes.
and also heartbreak and relationships and.
Well, what I found is when we focus on the future, we've been conditioned to believe that the mind is solving a problem.
Right.
But really what is happening is we get a disturbance in our body, okay? Something happens,
Yeah.
and you get a sensation in your body.
Right.
And we typically run to our mind for a solution.
Right.
But the personal mind only has the past to pull from. That is why people have the same patterns over and over and over, because they're connected to their personal computer,
Right.
not the World Wide Web, so
Right.
to speak.
Right.
So the only way to be connected to that bigger platform
picture, yeah.
is through presence.
Uh-huh.
And so it takes courage.
Yeah.
And the courage is really what I call living in the question mark. That's the way that when I went through it, I experienced it. I don't know if
And
you
what
know.
does that mean?
I'll
Living
tell
in
you.
the question mark.
Okay, so I have a sign. A lot of people know this because I tend to give it to friends, and I don't think I've given it to you, but I'll get you one. I found this sign that says, "I'm pretty sure I have no idea." I have one in my house and I have one in my office.
Right.
And so people will come see me, and people come and see you because you know a lot about what you do. And I think maybe it's a little bit jolting for me to often to point to the sign and say, I'm pretty sure I have no idea.
Yeah.
But the truth is, in this moment, it's a big I don't know. It's a big question. We don't know what's coming next. We don't know if something may happen or not happen,
So
right?
true, yeah.
And so when we can make peace, make friends with the moment, make friends with I don't know.
Yeah.
What I've discovered, and I've seen it through many masters, the Dalai Lama talks about it a lot of enlightened people talk about this. They say it's all about I don't know. Don't know mind is what they talk about in Buddhism. And anyway, so living in the question mark for me is when I really started meditating more and really started seeing that all of this is what I've known.
Yeah.
And these labels and fear. So when I let go of that, it's all the unknown, right? It's the question mark.
Yep.
And it feels, I say to clients, if you feel like there's no ground beneath you, you're in the right place. and it's,
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I always felt like you needed to feel grounded.
Well,
That's a
okay, so it's a
different scenario,
different kind
right?
of grounded.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great point. I love that you said that. So at first, because I don't feel, but in the beginning, because we're so used to
Physically grounded, I guess, and mentally grounded.
No,
is
no,
different.
it's a great point. And I like
Yeah.
it. So what happens is we're used to having this platform of the known through our mind, but that's all fear-based and it recycles pain. So if you go in, at first it feels like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, and that can feel uncomfortable, but I think it's important to have a guide that says, that's okay. It's okay to not know.
Right.
And then what you discover is, instead of being single-minded about this is the path,
Right.
you start to see that there's like a billion other paths. There's all these other options, which
Right.
is so liberating.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And so
God, I love that, because
it's
everybody needs it in all
amazing.
different avenues, not just mindfulness, but health and
everything.
yes, yeah.
And so the other mantra that works for that is maybe, maybe not. So when we go into judgment, we're like, say a friend or a close relationship does something that
I don't
seems
like.
very familiar.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I know. Well, do you? Or is that your mind? And so it's a maybe it's happening, maybe not. I need to check it out. So that's being in the question mark, rather than going with that thought that says, oh, he's lying,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
he's
He
not going to
always
show up.
does
He always,
whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
If you go with that thought, that's the recycling that I'm talking
Right.
about.
True.
Whereas if you're saying, maybe, maybe not, then you can fall into being here now and discovering what the truth may be, right?
Right.
So I don't know if that explains
No,
it
it
well.
totally explains it. It just, when you said that, it made me completely relax.
Oh, good.
Like,
I love
wow,
that.
we don't have, we are, I think, a very judgmental society. We are very programmed in our heads to think that this scenario is going to keep happening, and it is really doing us a disservice in every single way. So with
Yes.
whatever in the world that we actually come in contact with. So,
Right.
and it's keeping us tense and like, oh my God, that's going to happen. No, again, that happened. Oh, you're just always in the fight or flight mode.
Well, and also you're creating it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. So you are co-creating that. And when you can realize we have no control, obviously, on the outside world.
Yeah.
I have no
Or other
control
people.
over what's going to happen, right?
Right.
But I have, and this might be a new way of looking at it, I have complete control. The most important control I have is what I go with.
Yeah.
So am I going to go with the mind that says, oh, here you go again?
Right.
Or am I going to let go and stay in my peaceful, my let me be peace, or whatever that is that I ground into in the morning, or that I'm always in, right?
Right.
That I can choose to stay in. It's like, am I going to let traffic take me out of peace? Why? It's happening. I have no control.
No
But
control.
I do have complete control over what I choose to let take me out or not. And eventually, the more that you do that, you realize, why would I let anything disturb me? It's a choice.
True.
You still are going to deal with it,
Yeah.
but with more mindfulness, with more presence. And in that, remember, not a singular focus. You actually open up to all these other ways of solving the issue.
Right. That you didn't even know were possible.
Right.
That weren't there.
And you actually listen to your partner.
Right.
Rather than going with that.
One thought that you
Yeah.
constantly had blinders on.
Yes.
Right.
It's like you actually understand, because I think
Everybody's so different.
it's
and-
understanding that creates connection in relationships. You've been in a relationship a long time. We start to look at that person through a veil of who they are, and we're not really seeing who's sitting in front
who
of
is
us.
really there. And there's so many layers to them as a person, right? Sometimes they don't even unveil all those layers until later in the relationship. So
Right.
that's also something that needs to be
Valued.
cherished.
Absolutely.
So are there places you go to meditate, to, do, where are some of your favorite places to be quiet and contemplate?
In my own home, I have an altar, which I think is
You do have an altar?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And so I think that's really important. And the reason I do is because when you have a place that you go to on a regular basis, the energy there is very powerful. So just sitting there has a presence. But actually going, I think you know that I love Joshua Tree.
I do.
I did a retreat there in October, which was so powerful.
Are you going to be doing another one?
I would love to do. I'm working on that.
Okay,
Also,
okay.
Iceland. I think you
Yes,
know.
yes.
I went on retreat there a year and a half ago, and you haven't been yet. But the
No.
elemental power of Iceland, you know, the water and the volcanic rock, and there are like no trees, it's just wind, and it's so powerful. So I find that different places on this planet that we are on are so powerful and can deepen that meditative practice or the way of living, and open you up.
So you're really saying outside in nature. I know you love the beach as well.
I do. So, well, I think you know that I'm working on a show that, that's about healing families.
Yeah.
And the biggest requirement of that show was that each place we go has to be abundant in nature.
Okay.
The reason being, people are really locked in their mind.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, I'll say to them,
Yeah.
you notice a sunset, or you notice a tree, or you look up at the sky, and it takes you out of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's always available. But if we really want to make dramatic change, to be in a place that has a lot of nature, it just connects us to our true nature. Talk about grounding.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So I ask all my guests on the show if they had to sum up their mission in one word. What would yours be?
Presence.
Yeah, I love that. I'm not sure anyone's used that in all. I mean, it's interesting because it's so, it's something that everybody should like have pinned, I think, to their wall. Just be present today.
Yeah, I think that I said, what's so funny you asked that question, because yesterday with clients, I actually asked every client this. I said, there's one word that heals everything. What is it? And presence. Another client said awareness, same thing.
Right.
But it's what heals.
Yeah. Loved having you on my show.
Thank you.
Goes way too fast.
Thank you.